Hey guys, this is Ben. Welcome back to Box Office with Ben here on iCrave Network. If you didn't know, this is a new series for the channel where I dissect the weekly box office, so make sure you come back to the channel each and every week for that discussion. Alright, so we all know that Doctor Strange 2 opens up next week. And I'm gonna give you my prediction for how well I think it's gonna open later in this video. But first, let's talk about this weekend's top 10. Number 1 was, again, The Bad Guys, which made another 16.1 million, dropping only 32.8%. This is a very respectable second weekend for The Bad Guys, and honestly expected when you consider the word of mouth on this movie, how well received it was by audiences. I was expecting this to have a very good hold, and it did. If we're comparing it to other recent DreamWorks movies, Captain Underpants from 2017 had a very similar opening weekend, and it dropped 48% in its second weekend. So this is holding very well, even when you compare it to other DreamWorks movies. Abominable, which opened in 2019 in a similar first weekend range, dropped 40%. I love to see it. Bad Guys is a really fun movie, and obviously this wasn't a super well-known IP, so I think audiences are slowly discovering this movie, and more people are kind of talking about it. So I expect it to continue to do pretty well in the coming weeks, though everything is gonna take a pretty big hit next weekend with Doctor Strange. Number 2 was again Sonic 2, continues to do super well, had a 27.5% drop. At this point, it's now officially passed both the domestic gross and the worldwide gross of the first Sonic movie. So in only 4 weeks, it's passed Sonic 1, that's fantastic. It's up to $323 million worldwide. In third place, we have Fantastic Beasts 3, which made another $8.3 million, which is a 40.7% drop. Another 40% drop is not great for Fantastic Beasts, especially at this point in its run. It's struggling to hit $100 million domestically, which is kind of embarrassing for this franchise. Crimes of Grindelwald, the last movie in this franchise, got up to $160 million domestically, which was already the lowest in the franchise. So Fantastic Beasts 3 is at about 80 million, about half of that at this point. And movies make most of their money in the first 3 weeks. So, you know, it ain't looking too good for Fantastic Beasts and the Wizarding World franchise overall. So the question is now, will Fantastic Beasts 3 make money? Will it break even? So let's do a little calculation here. The budget for this movie was $200 million. And then you gotta add marketing on top of that. Now marketing is on average 50% of the budget. So let's add another $100 million on top of that. So that's $300 million that this movie costs to make. Now, about 50% of that ends up going to movie theaters and other things. So this movie needs to make about double its budget to break even. So that's $600 million. And again, this is all approximate, this is all estimates, but $600 million is its break-even point, and it's only up to $330 million worldwide right now. $330 million. It is not gonna hit $600 million. Crimes of Grindelwald barely hit $600 million. This one is going to lose money. Probably gonna be the first film in the franchise to lose money. So at this point, like we've been saying for the past couple weeks, will they move forward with Fantastic Beasts 4 and 5? I think it's very unlikely at this point. Let's move on to number 4, which is The Northman, which had a 48.7% drop, made another $6.3 million. This is actually the biggest drop in the top 10, even though it's under 50%, which kind of tells you a little bit of the state of the box office right now. Things aren't dropping too bad, the box office is back, but anyways, for having a budget upwards of $70 million and having an opening weekend of only $12 million, a 48% drop for The Northman is not really great. Like I said last week, I was expecting this to have a pretty big drop when you consider the audience response to this thing. It is not a crowd-pleasing movie. It got a B cinema score. This thing doesn't have incredible word of mouth. People are not bringing their friends back to see this movie, so not surprising, but it's too bad. Everything Everywhere All at Once, though, is still doing incredible. This thing went up 2.2%. This thing literally went up in its, what is this, 4th weekend, 5th weekend? This thing is getting more and more recognition. More and more people are discovering it. The word of mouth on this thing is incredible. To see an original movie like this growing and gaining an audience is just fantastic. I love to see it. Couldn't happen to a better movie. And it really just shows us how non-IP, non-franchise movies still have a place in the box office and still can make a lot of money. For the rest of the top 10, Memory was the only new movie this weekend, the only one that was willing to open up a week before Doctor Strange. I was optimistic about its opening and predicted that it would make $5 million. It only made $3.1 million, which puts it at number 8 in the overall top 10. Not a good opening, but it's about on par with some of Liam Neeson's most recent films and a couple of his films that opened up in the pandemic. They all seem to make around $3 million. I thought this one might open a bit bigger. I was actually right on the money with my Rotten Tomatoes audience score prediction. I predicted 80%, and it did indeed get an 80%, right on the dot. So I got that right. As for cinema score, it actually hasn't been released at the time of me filming this video. I predicted a B+. If it comes out before this video is released, I'll put it on the screen, but I was right with my Rotten Tomato audience prediction, so I'll take it. I'll take it. Anyways, let's move on to next weekend, where we got Doctor Strange 2, the big movie, the first big release of the year. Like, I don't think there's been a movie on this level that's been released in 2022. I guess the Batman was pretty big, but Doctor Strange 2, the first Marvel movie of the year. The industry projections for this movie are between 150 and 200 million. Now, the industry projections for Spider-Man were also pretty low in comparison to what it opened to. I think it was actually around the same range, around $200 million what they were projecting, and it ended up making $260 million. So I'm gonna go out on a little bit of a limb, and I'm gonna put my prediction at $210 million for Doctor Strange 2. I think this thing is gonna be huge. I think it's gonna pop. Audiences are craving a movie like this. Another big Marvel summer blockbuster like Doctor Strange 2. And this thing is gonna be crazy. It's building right off of Spider-Man. It's gonna be loaded with cameos. I think it's gonna be huge. It's also only 2 hours long, so you have a bit more of a repeat viewing element there. Honestly, Spider-Man was released during the peak of Omicron, right? And it managed to make $260 million. So when you take that into consideration, I think that Doctor Strange 2 can easily make above $200 million. If this movie ends up not being super good, like if the reviews aren't very strong for this one and audiences don't love it, which I think is unlikely, maybe it ends up being closer to that 150 range. But anticipating it being a well-received movie, a movie that audiences are gonna like, if we expect that, then I think it's gonna be big. I think it's gonna be big. We're gonna put my guess at 210, which would actually put it at like, what would it put it at? Number 6 of all time? Number 6 biggest opening of all time. So I'm predicting big numbers for this thing. We'll see. As for my Rotten Tomatoes audience score prediction, I'm gonna put it at 97%. I think that people are gonna love this movie. Marvel movies get high audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes, so I don't see why this one would be any different. And as for my cinema score prediction, I'm gonna put it at an A. Not quite an A+. Not a ton of Marvel movies have managed to get that A+. Like Spider-Man No Way Home, Endgame, the first Avengers, I think Black Panther. Those ones managed to get the A+, but A would still be a very solid cinema score for Doctor Strange, so that's what I'm predicting. And I also want to throw in one more little thing at the end of the video here. I want to give you my summer box office predictions, my overall summer predictions. Believe it or not, the summer box office begins next week with Doctor Strange. That is technically the first weekend in the summer box office window. So we got a bunch of exciting movies releasing from now up until the end of the summer. So I'm gonna give you my 1 to 10 of what I think are gonna be the highest grossing movies. I'm not gonna give you any number value, just what I think is gonna be the top 10. And then we'll take a look at it. We'll revisit this list as the summer goes along and see how close I was. All right, so here's my list. At number 1, I got Jurassic World Dominion. I think this is gonna be huge. This is like the one on the list that I think is like a guaranteed $1 billion. The last couple Jurassic World movies made $1 billion, over $1 billion. And this one has an added nostalgia factor. You got the original cast returning. It's got a lot of hype behind it. Everybody's gonna go and see this movie. It's the end of the saga, they're calling it. So the Jurassic World saga. At number 2, I'm actually gonna put Thor Love and Thunder. I'm gonna put Thor Love and Thunder over Doctor Strange 2. Thor Ragnarok was pretty huge at the box office. I believe it made like 850 million. So I think this one's only gonna go up, especially now that, Taika Waititi has revitalized the character, has put, new life into this franchise. You got the Guardians in there too, and you got, Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher. You got Natalie Portman as Lady Thor. Number 3, I'm gonna put Doctor Strange 2. Again, I think this movie is gonna be huge. I think it's also gonna make over $1 billion. At number 4 though, I have Minions. Minions is the Despicable Me franchise, just makes money. So Minions 2, I think, is gonna make over $1 billion. The first Minions made over $1 billion. This franchise is huge. Kids and their families are all gonna go out to see this movie. It's a very recognizable IP. Number 5, I have Top Gun 2. So the first reviews for this movie, the first reactions just came out this week out of CinemaCon, and they're glowing. I think this movie is gonna be really big. I think people are gonna love it. I think this is gonna be a movie that audiences love. Next, I got Lightyear, my most anticipated movie on this list. I think this movie is also gonna do very well. Obviously, it's part of the Toy Story franchise, and the last 2 Toy Story movies made over $1 billion, so it has the potential of being really big. But, you know, it's not Toy Story 5. It is Lightyear. It's got, you know, a new group of characters aside from Buzz. It's kind of a different universe, might be a bit confusing to people. Then I got Bullet Train, which I think is gonna be a bit of a sleeper hit. I think that audiences are gonna love this movie and it's gonna hold very well throughout the summer. Nope, Jordan Peele's newest movie. This could be much bigger, I don't know. We just don't know a ton about it yet, but Jordan Peele has shown that he can be a big draw for the box office. Then we got DC Super Pets, an animated DC movie. Families are gonna go and see this movie for sure. I expect it to do very well. And then I got Elvis at number 10, which I've heard very good things about, so it could do very well, especially when you consider that Bohemian Rhapsody made like $800 million or even more maybe. It could be like a Bohemian Rhapsody, I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, that's my top 10. Like I said, we're gonna revisit this list over the summer and see how accurate I was and if my top 10 were right. So that'll be interesting to see. That's it for this week, guys. Make sure you come back next week where we're gonna talk all things Doctor Strange 2. It's gonna be a very, very fun discussion. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave your predictions for Doctor Strange down in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel and hit that like button if you enjoyed. And I'll be back with the box office next week. See ya.